Hello and welcome back to my shop. Today I have a short video for you on making a down and dirty snap gauge to measure the wall thickness of a tube through a hole. Now before I get into this video, I want to thank everybody who subscribed to my channel in the last several weeks, trying to get me up to 1,000 subscribers so that I can get my channel remonetized. We only have 10 to go. We're at 990, so if you haven't subscribed yet, I would appreciate it. If you find my videos useful. So here's what the situation was. What I've done is I've cut a hole in a piece of Lexan just to illustrate what I'm talking about. And imagine that this hole is in a cylindrical tube. So we were tasked with having to measure the thickness of the material at 6 locations around the hole. And there were many holes. Don't ask me why they wanted that, but they did. And we had to get it done within a 24-hour period. The problem was we had nothing in the shop that would measure that. Obviously, you can't use an ordinary caliper because you can't get it in the hole. And even if you could, you're measuring a cylinder. So even if you're measuring on a radius. So even if you were to say, okay, we'll put the caliper that far in, it still wouldn't be accurate. We had to get measurements down to a 1/2,000th. So what did we do? We looked around the entire shop at every piece of measuring equipment we had. We looked at snap gauges, we looked at micrometers, we looked at just about everything we could find, and nothing would do the job. Somebody even came up with this tiny little micrometer. And it would go in the hole, but again, the problem is that we're measuring a radius, and this little tiny micrometer, which I doubt is accurate to a 1/2 thou, has flat anvils on it, so that didn't work. So what we came up with, in a pinch, everybody was like panicking. We can't get anything in here, within 24 hours and get the validation done. So what we came up with is this. This is a ordinary dial indicator that has a ball bearing foot to it, and we very quickly, let me take this out. We very quickly came up with this. Can you see that? I'll put it in my... Okay. We created a ball bearing anvil. It's very simple. I think it took maybe 10 or 12 minutes to actually make. And the dial indicator has a ball bearing foot to it, base. So it's more or less just a piece of 1/2 inch aluminum, 1/2 inch by 1 aluminum, that we bored a 3/8 inch hole with an end mill to keep it accurate, and we glued a ball bearing with using some cyanoacrylate, and it worked incredibly well. You put it on, we push it in until we get the indicator close to the vertical position, like that. Tighten it up. And we zero it out. Okay, we're on 0. And then we could take this, which had a very small profile and foot to it, we could put it in the hole like that and measure what the thickness was. Now the only problem with this is that you have to have the indicator perfectly vertical to the axis of the cylinder. As you can see, if I just change it a little bit, it moves. So you have to look for the smallest reading that you can get, and that would be your thickness. So theoretically, the point of contact between the two radii of the bearings is very, very small. So you could get a reading on a curved surface. Now, I'm not going to remake this for the video, but I'll show you on the blackboard how we did it so that we could ensure that we had perfect alignment between the ball and the gauge. We'll go over to the blackboard to do that. We started out with a piece of material, that aluminum, that was 1 inch by 2 inches by 1/2 inch. All right. We then figured out how small the foot had to be, or the anvil, in order to get into the hole, and bored a hole through the piece of aluminum with a drill that was slightly smaller diameter than the ball bearing we were going to use, so that it would create a seat for the ball bearing. So we drilled that hole. Then we used an end mill without changing anything and bored a 3/8 inch pocket for the diameter of the dial indicator. And once that was done, we then just took it over to the bandsaw and cut it out like that to create the anvil. Filed it up to make it look nice, whatever. And then when that was done, we cut the bottom of the anvil off so that it would fit into the hole. Then once we had that all done, you drill a hole and tap it for, we did it with a 1032 for a set screw or a cap screw to lock the indicator in where you wanted it, and we had our snap gauge. That was that simple. I don't think it took 10 or 12 minutes to make it, and it solved the problem. Alright, so this is the piece, just to show it. And you can see the little ball bearing. What we did was we glued that in with the cyanoacrylate, and then place the snap gauge in, the dial indicator in, until we get it pretty much vertical, just to make it easy to read, because we had several hundred of these measurements that had to be made. Okay, so there we have it. Down and dirty snap gauge. Now, because these are 2 ball bearings and we were measuring something that was nominally a 20,000ths of an inch, you didn't have to pull it up like you would normally a snap gauge, because just the ball bearings, it would just slide right into the, slide right in, just like that, you know. So we could go around and do all our measurements very quickly. And I don't know if I'll try to show you the accuracy of this. This is a 10,000ths feeler gauge. And if I slide it in, and I look for the lowest denomination, I'm right on 10,000ths. So there you have it. If you're in a pinch, that might get you out of it. Okay, thanks for watching. See you on the next video. Don't forget to subscribe. Thumbs up if you liked the video.